Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. Think of this session as kind of a masterclass on one of the most fascinating and, frankly, most dangerous financial paradoxes in modern business. We're going to pull back the curtain on the ultimate illusion of corporate success. It's that wild scenario where incredible outward success, soaring sales, and expanding margins actually mask deep systemic vulnerabilities that can literally bring a company to its knees. We are talking about the cash flow trap. So picture this high-stakes scenario for a second. The CEO is popping champagne, celebrating record revenue for the quarter. The board of directors, they're absolutely thrilled because, well, the profit margins look fantastic on paper. But down the hall in the finance department, the CFO is staring at an empty treasury account in a cold sweat. A massive supplier invoice just landed on their desk, and payroll is due in exactly 3 days. You have to ask yourself, how does this happen? How in the world can a highly profitable company suddenly find itself completely out of cash?
Well, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. To figure that out, we're going to dismantle the myth that growth solves all problems. We'll look at the core paradox, break down exactly why profit isn't cash, explore the mechanics of that dangerous growth trap, and give you the warning signs to watch for. Then, we'll wrap up with the metrics you actually need and how to engineer true financial balance.
All right, part 1, the cash flow paradox. Let's just dive straight into this. The first thing you need to realize is that the scenario I just described, it is not some rare hypothetical edge case. Not at all. This paradox is a recurring reality, and it strikes across literally all industries, all geographies, and all stages of business growth.
I absolutely love this quote. It's pretty much the bedrock of our whole lesson today. Profit is an opinion. Cash is a fact. You see, at the end of the day, profit is really just an accounting construct, right? It's heavily shaped by your company's revenue recognition policies, depreciation schedules, accruals. It's basically an interpretation of financial health. Cash, on the other hand, is entirely binary. It's either sitting right there in your bank account, ready to be deployed, or it isn't. When a company can't meet its obligations, creative accounting is not going to save you. Only liquidity can.
Moving to part 2, we really need to hammer home that profit is not cash. There is a fundamental mechanical difference in how accountants view money on a spreadsheet versus how reality dictates a company's day-to-day survival.
Look at the underlying timeline gap here. It's super interesting. With your income statement, you're recording revenue the exact moment it's earned, and expenses the moment they're incurred. But then look at the cash flow statement. This bad boy only records reality. Cash when it is actually collected from the customer, and cash when it actually leaves your bank account. That dangerous disconnect, the exact place where these massive cash flow crises are born, lives right there in the gap between when revenue is earned and when it is finally actually collected.
Which brings us to section 3, the dangerous growth trap. The crazy thing is, when a company gets caught in that timeline gap we just talked about, their first instinct is almost always to try and sell their way out of it. But that leads directly into the trap. Counterintuitively, rapid revenue growth absolutely does not fix a cash flow problem. In fact, it actually acts as a massive accelerant. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
To understand why that happens, let's imagine a highly successful manufacturing company. Let's say they're hitting this massive, booming growth rate of 40% annually. On the surface, everyone is cheering, high fives all around. But I gotta warn you, behind the scenes, that 40% growth is actively eating their working capital alive. Let's look at the mechanics of why that actually happens.
This timeline brilliantly illustrates the trap. As this company scales up, every single dollar of new revenue demands working capital first. Think about it. Step 1, they have to hire new staff ahead of the revenue. Step 2, they've got to build up inventory long before they actually ship it. Step 3, to win those big new accounts, they usually have to extend generous credit terms. Step 4, meanwhile, their own suppliers are still demanding payment in 30 days. And finally, step 5, the company just has to sit around and wait 60 to 90 days for their customers to actually pay them. So the company looks incredibly profitable on paper, but in practice, they are effectively financing their customers' businesses using their own rapidly depleting cash. It's wild.
Okay, on to section 4, the warning signs to watch. Now, the good news here is that a profitable company entering this trap rarely just collapses out of nowhere. If you know what to look for, there are early diagnostic signals flashing long before that bank account ever hits zero.
Here are the major red flags you really need to keep an eye on. First up, a rising DSO, or Days Sales Outstanding. This just means your customers are taking longer and longer to pay you. Second, expanding inventory days. This means your capital is literally just sitting there collecting dust in a warehouse instead of cycling through the business. Third, Aggressively stretched payables. And let me be perfectly clear here. Unilaterally delaying payments to your suppliers isn't some brilliant financial strategy. It's basically just borrowing from your supply chain without asking. It's a huge symptom of distress. Fourth, look for a divergence between your net income and your operating cash flow. If profit is going up but your cash generation is going down, something is structurally broken. Period. And finally, using debt to fund daily operations instead of using it for strategic growth investments.
Section 5. Metrics beyond the P&L. Listen, if you want to catch those warning signs early, you have to be looking in the right places. Finance leaders who try to manage their business by looking at the P&L alone, they are essentially trying to navigate their car by staring strictly into the rearview mirror. We need much sharper, forward-looking tools.
And the most important tool in your arsenal for this is the cash conversion cycle, or CCC. This measures the exact amount of time it takes to convert your inventory and your receivables back into cold, hard cash. It is without a doubt the clearest operational measure of your working capital efficiency. What's so amazing about the CCC is that if you can manage to reduce this cycle by even just a few days, you release an incredibly meaningful wave of liquidity right back into the business.
But just measuring it isn't quite enough, right? Timing is literally everything. If you are only reviewing your cash position on a standard monthly reporting cycle, I promise you, you are already too slow. You've got to move to rolling 13-week cash forecasts. This gives you the visibility to spot trouble entire quarters before it actually arrives. You should also be watching metrics like your capex to depreciation ratio, just to ensure your investments are actually building future capacity and not just quietly draining your near-term cash to maintain the status quo.
Finally, Section 6. Engineering financial balance. So how do we actually fix this? Well, this brings us to the modern CFO's true mandate. It is no longer just about reporting the numbers. It's about architecting the specific operational conditions where profitable growth is also sustainable growth.
To pull this off, we need deliberate intervention across 4 key areas. First up, working capital. You must compress your DSO through rigorous collections and align your inventory purely to actual demand, not just optimistic hopes. Second, forecasting. Implement those rolling 13-week cash scenarios we just talked about. Third, liquidity. Establish your credit lines and maintain your headroom way before you actually need them. Remember the golden rule of banking, right? Banks only want to lend money to businesses that don't urgently need it, so negotiate when you have the leverage. And finally, culture. You absolutely must align your sales incentives to actual cash collected, not just sales volume. Think about it. If you only pay commission on bookings, your sales team is always going to prioritize volume over healthy payment terms.
As we wrap up our analysis today, I want to leave you with this incredibly hard-hitting truth. Profit tells you whether the business model works, cash flow tells you whether the business survives. Over my time studying these systems, I can confidently tell you that the companies that fail, they rarely lack a viable product, and they rarely lack a strong market position. They simply run out of time. And in the world of business, time is entirely denominated in cash.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question for you to ponder. As you look at your own organization right now, are you optimizing for this quarter's earnings? Are you actually optimizing for next quarter's survival? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope you take these tools, check your blind spots, and protect your growth. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.